Yo, what's up guys? Coach Geetster here, and in this guide, I'm going to be teaching you all the tips and tricks on how to get the most use out of my favorite blade in Beyblade X, KnightMail. If you're enjoying the content, please feel free to like and subscribe, and if you'd like to support me even further, check out my Metafy link down in the description. Let's get into the guide. So why should you pick KnightMail? KnightMail is a very powerful anti-attack type. For those of you that don't know what anti-attack is a mix of attack and defense where it is able to defeat other attack types by taking the hits long enough and outspinning them like a traditional defense type does, but it also has the offensive potential to knock out stamina types that traditional defense types struggle with. Nightmail does this through its slope design that can deflect other bays off of it in a similar way to Silverwolf, but it also uses its slopes that it has on it to deliver upper attacks to the other things that it runs into, whether that be a stamina type or another opposing attack type. Nightmail as a blade is very low recoil in comparison to other things used on aggressive bits. So when it collides with another bay, whether it's delivering the attack or taking it, it doesn't get sent back as far as something like a Phoenix Wing that would go kind of flying because of its recoil. Some of the cons to Nightmail are it really struggles in the defensive type blades. So bays that are designed to be defensive, such as Rod Hexa or Wolf Hexa, it can struggle against. Um, since it's an upper attack type, it has to be able to get under the opponent, and this causes problems when you get into matchups with things that are on like low orb, under needle, or like Dragoon Elevate, which are all very short things that exist in the metagame. It takes a lot to get under these, and that's sort of the trade-off you take when you're using an upper attacker. It has no or very low late game potential for KOs. Unlike things like Hover Wyvern or like a Dran Buster that even at very low spin rate can still score an over or an extreme finish, Nightmail really can't do that on a normal occasion. And Nightmail also doesn't really score a lot of burst finishes. There's not a lot of things that are actually grabbing onto your opponent's ratchet and like turning it like other attack types do because it's an upper attacker. It's mainly focused on just getting under the other bait and just throwing it. We're not really delivering much of a smash attack. It's all just lift and throw. My recommended combo for Nightmail is Nightmail 760 Rush. I found that 760 is the best all-round ratchet for this spay. It can be switched out, so 760 is the heaviest 60 height ratchet available. So since Nightmail is slightly lighter than some other attack types, the extra weight helps. It gives it a bit of LAD, so you can try to beat Dragoon or something, or other attack types that get closer to you in stamina. The 760 helps a little bit with that. And the 760 also doesn't make the bay hop around or stuff when it does scrape. Um, you can switch to 160 if you're anticipating more stamina matchups and you want to still use Nightmail. That gives you enough attack potential to really have a good chance in the like Wizard Rod. 360 gives you a bit more raw stamina if that's what you're looking for, but mainly I tend to stick to 760 for like 3-on-3 when I don't know what I'm going to be going against all the time. My favorite bit is just normal rush. Low rush makes sense in theory because it's shorter and you're an upper attacker, you want to get under. The issue is it tends to throw itself out a lot on this combo, so normal rush is just better. It gives you enough speed to hit things hard enough while also maintaining enough stamina to beat other attack types in the end game. So it's a bit more flexible than some other combos. Like I said, this is just my recommendation. You can definitely play around some with some other bits and ratchets, but these are the few that I like the most. Our goals with Nightmail, we want to use our opponent's high recoil against them to throw them around. So when you run into things, and we'll go with the second bullet point too, we want to launch in a way to initiate early contact. So when we run into things, their recoil is going to throw them around when we're just slamming into them constantly. I know it's a misconception where people confuse like recoil with like smash attack, where people just say, "Oh wow, this blade has a lot of recoil, it's good." but in reality, you're more referring to smash attack. Recoil is a bad thing. It's how far you get thrown backwards off of a collision. Um, so we want to use the higher recoil blades against our opponent to just throw them around their stadium. It disrupts them, throws them around. They never really get going. Um, this lets us score some cheeky 2 point or 3 point finishes against other attack types when we normally just intend to outspin them if we can. Um, and yeah, so KnightMail can use a lot of different launch tech effectively, and we'll get into that in the gameplay. And like I mentioned, we want to disrupt the attacker's patterns. If we can keep them in the middle or off the rail, that's less potential for them to KO us, and that's more time for us to either score a free 2 points off of them because they're just sitting there for us, or just knock all the stamina out of them and just get our free 1 point and get out. So let's hop into some gameplay. All right, so now first few matchups I'm going to showcase are against some of the most common attack types that you'll encounter in a competitive setting. So our strategy going into this is going to be using a slight angled launch in the middle of the stadium. And that's what that's going to allow us to do is I'll draw it out. We want to start in the middle and we're going to use this inner ridge of the bowl, ride around, and we're going to come out around here. And if our opponent's doing any sort of stall, what it's going to do is just run directly into them while they're still in the stall. And it's going to disrupt their pattern. If you knock people out of this pattern aggressively, most of the time it just doesn't let them catch the rail or do anything that they wanted to do for the rest of the battle. It kills their stamina, and KnightMail will be able to win in a spin finish, or maybe luckily get a over finish or extreme if collisions go your way. Um, if they don't attempt to stall, we still do this generally, and this is because the safest place to be when your opponent is extreme dashing is directly behind them. So that'll allow you to hit them on a follow up, or if you're even further behind, you'll catch them after they do their first dash. They'll be in the middle waiting for you to hit them. So in this match here, we are going to do that flat launch, or almost flat launch, and we dash first, we hit them, and we're just knocking this Tyranno beat around. It doesn't actually really get a good extreme dash the whole way through, and then KnightMail uses those big slopes on the top of it to kick the Tyranno beat out of the stadium right before it stops spinning. KnightMail was going to win this by outspin regardless, but we were able to use our aggression to score an extra point out of it. Um, Next one here is up against Phoenix Wing. Phoenix Wing is a very good matchup for us. It doesn't like getting knocked around. It has a lot of recoil, and when people run it on, like, the most common setup I see is 360 or 160, there isn't a lot protecting the underside of the blade, which means you really get to knock them around. They pretty much have no counter to it. As long as you don't get unlucky, this Phoenix Wing matchup is pretty winnable. So like I said, this time, instead of us dashing first, they dash first, but they can completely miss us, and we catch them on a follow-up. And we just lift them over the wall into the extreme pocket. The next matchup is Aero Pegasus, and now Aero Pegasus you have to take a more aggressive approach against. Because Aero Pegasus has way more stamina than the two blades previously mentioned, you actually have to try to aim for more over and extreme finishes against us, or at least a lot of early contact that disrupts their pattern a lot, causes them to scrape, all kinds of things like that. This Aero Pegasus is on a 160 low rush, it looks like, and it looks like our opponent is going to attempt a sort of drop launch against us, so that plays directly into our strategy that we are going to do against most of our attack types, which is slight angle in the middle so we can come up and catch them off their stall. Them being on low rush makes it a little more difficult to get under them, but we will use the height difference between the center and the outside of the stadium to our advantage to help get under them because we'll be at a lower height than them inherently before we consider things like the 1 millimeter difference from our bits and stuff like that. So off the launch here, we see our opponent sort of either misses their stall in the B side little hill here, or this is just what they wanted. But our launch counters this perfectly, and we're going to hit them and extreme them. Um, this next matchup here is against Hover Wyvern, which is one of the newer matchups. KnightMail's been around for a while, so it's been a decent part of the meta too, if it's been on the right setups. Hover Wyvern's a bit newer, so this matchup isn't as explored, even for me personally. And I think these two matches that I'm about to show really demonstrate the best way I think it is to take on Hover Wyvern, and that is to almost play into the game they want. So Hover Wyvern hits really hard, sends things flying, but at times its own recoil gets the better of it and it will throw itself out. So we want to launch as aggressively as possible, and we just want to send all of our mass uh, barreling into them, and we're just going to hope that we end up on the good side of these collisions. Um, Hover Wyvern, if it's a straight up stamina match, I believe has a bit more stamina than KnightMail. So we almost have to take the same approach that we do with Aero Pegasus, where we have to be the one creating contact, and we have to cause the Hover Wyvern to take a substantial amount of recoil to even out the spin so that we can potentially outspin them. But we're also looking for results like this where we catch them and we get this nice extreme finish on them. Here's another hover versus KnightMail here, and now that we're on this side of the stadium instead of the other, we're gonna try to attempt to stop their deep angle that most hover wyvern players are going to just try to stall up in this hill and drop launch, because that's the best way they can get these big slopes engaged with their opponent early on this side of the stadium for them, so over here. So we're going to do the same launch, but we have to make sure that we are getting as long as possible with the amount of time that we spend on this ridge on the inside. If we don't catch that entire ridge perfectly, we're going to come off at weird angles. So we want to make sure that we come across here uh, as flush with the stadium as possible. We don't want like like a trajectory like this, because if we come straight instead of on the curve, we're pointed back towards this way, towards this over zone over here, and we're trying to avoid getting KO'd that way. So the other matchups you have a little more leeway, but against Hover Wyvern you have to really make sure your launch is accurate. So here we're gonna take this whole ridge to make sure that the contact starts around here. If we start the contact around here, we're both going to hit the back wall or the side walls, but that's good for us because that's a lot of recoil that they're going to take. They're going to lose a lot of spin from that. Their pattern's going to be disrupted, so they might not be at the right angle to deliver better hits to us later into the match. So we just have to disrupt their pattern. And as you see, this Hover Wyvern has lost all control. It's throwing itself everywhere. It's not angled anymore. But KnightMail is not destabilized, nothing, taking hits, and using the Hover Wyvern's recoil against it there again. And it just so happened that the hit lined up in front of the over zone, or not the extreme zone, and we get the extreme finish there as well. So instead of trying to avoid Hover Wyvern, we do the complete opposite. We play into their game, and we just have to pray that we're not the ones that go out on some hit like that. Hover Wyvern's very good in attack versus attack. So if the player's skilled enough, they kind of want these sort of matchups because they can guarantee high point values. So we just have to buck the trend, go against the norm, and just run our face straight into them. It's the only way that I've found to make this matchup consistently winnable for KnightMail. This next matchup here is against Rod Hexa. This is really going to show why this matchup is not favored for Wizard or for KnightMail. We're going to see this Wizard Rod is going to tank a bunch of our hits, and it holding its ground disrupts our pattern, and we're not able to really get any more good X dashes. And we're going to take a bunch of knockback there, and they're going to hold their ground and score an over finish against us. It's really unfortunate. Stuff happens, but most of the time you'll lose that by 1 point. But yeah, it's a really tough matchup. I wouldn't advise entirely throwing the point like I would, like, let's say if I'm playing Rod Ball into Dragoon E, but be wary that a lot of bad stuff is going to happen before you score the extra two. The way I normally try to attempt that matchup is don't worry about the angle on KnightMail. Just launch hard and hope you can knock the bay that's on Hexa into the rail and send them crazy because of the 16 gear bit that Hexa is. That's your best chance. You can lower their stamina that way, or you can hope they throw themselves out of the stadium for you, or put themselves in a bad position so that KnightMail can get a little tap and throw them out. The next matchups, the last two matchups here, or three, are going to be up against Wizard Rod Ball combos or Wizard Rod Low Orb. And you can see our approach to this matchup is going to be slightly different, where instead of flat launching, I'm taking a steeper angle here. And we're just really trying to get those slopes engaged with the opponent and lift them out. So we get an extreme finish there. Took a bit of setup and took a bit of time. But we see one hit really tilts them over for us. And then our second dash is going to be the one that finishes them off by lifting them over the wall into the extreme pocket. Now against this one here, this is Rod Low Orb. Our opponent looks like they're attempting a stall, so we're going to do a similar strategy that we did against the attack types. And this is just because since they are going to be stalling up in this higher section of the stadium, we're going to disrupt their pattern and we're going to try to get under them by using the height difference. So that one, we hit them, knocked them into the rail. They went around once and we just luckily caught them by the extreme zone. But even then, uh, they were going to be so destabilized by then, it actually opens up the opportunity for us to get the good upper attack in order to score 2 points or 3 points, depending on what happens. That's the main way you beat these sort of stalls and things like that with KnightMail. Like I said, KnightMail has a lot of attack potential, but it's not perfect. You have to win pretty early. So getting a good read on your opponent and knowing what sort of launch you need to do is going to be very important in getting the results you want. So here, same thing. Our opponent looks like they're going to do this stall again. So we're going to do the same strategy that we did in the previous round and flat launch. They look like they go a little too hard on the angle. So they end up not stalling long enough, and then we catch them on the other half of the stadium, run directly into them, and the rail is going to send them out. So no upper attack really, but we still get the over finish. If you made it to the end of the video, I just want to thank you. If you enjoy this style of content, there's a playlist that will be on the channel with all my other competitive guides that are available. And if you would like, leave a comment, let me know what you think about KnightMail, and I'll catch you in the next guide.